with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, moni wanji, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hi, my name is Jedley, and this is the Reading with Your Kids podcast. We're coming to you from the beautiful neighborhood of Reedville in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so honored and so delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. Please be sure to tell all of your family and friends about the show, and please be sure to subscribe to the show in the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher Radio, wherever you find your podcast. Our guest today is Richard Wagner. He is here to celebrate his debut children's picture book, Needles, the Forgotten Christmas Tree. Before we invite Richard into the studio, we want to invite you to check out a picture book that I wrote. It's called Real Magic. The illustrations were created by my incredibly talented niece, Tiffany Doherty. And Real Magic asks the question, is magic real? Do we have the ability to perform real magic? Now, this book was inspired by an incident that happened to me on stage many years ago, quite an amazing incident where something truly magical happened. A young girl was invited on stage, and because of the kindness that the audience showed her, she amazed all of us. Check it out today. Real Magic is available on Amazon as an ebook. Real Magic by Jedley and illustrations by Tiffany Doherty. We also would like to invite you to connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, at Jedley Magic on Twitter. Be sure to check out the Reading With Your Kids channel on YouTube. Coming soon. Don't tell anybody yet, but coming soon, Drawing with Your Kids on YouTube. I'm so excited about this. It's going to be a blast. Hey, to be the first to learn when we're launching Drawing with Your Kids, be sure to go to our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Sign up for our free online magazine. You can also use the contact button while you're there. Send us a message. Let us know what you love about the show. Let us know what you think we could be doing better. And let us know who you would like to hear on a future episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Join us right now from beautiful Newport Beach in the great state of California. Our guest is here today to celebrate his brand new picture book. It's called Needles, the Forgotten Christmas Tree. Please welcome to the show, Richard Wagner. Hey, Richard, how are you?
I'm good, Jedley. How are you doing this morning?
I'm pretty wonderful. I can't wait for you to tell us all about Needles.
Well, Needles is a small little scraggly tree. The story about Needles is inspired by a true life event in my life. Needles is a little tree that wants so badly to be a beautiful Christmas tree, but gets left as the last tree on the lot. Nobody wants him. And through a series of trials where he perseveres, he never gives up, he ends up, the book ends on a beautiful, uplifting note, where it has a very happy ending, a very inspirational ending, with a couple of life lessons. Ooh.
Wonderful. Richard, I don't know about you, but I'm at a point in my life where I like those scraggly, scrawny little Christmas trees more than the big. I grew up with, the big giant trees that you would have to cut half of it off to get it in the house, and still the top was all bent over and everything. But in the last 10, 15 years, I've been all for those little scrawny trees that maybe you can put up on a coffee table.
Well, I agree. And in the end, it's what you put on the tree that matters most.
Absolutely.
And what you put on the tree can transform just about any tree and make it look beautiful.
Yeah.
And that's really what happens in this story.
I think that's a great lesson to talk to our kids about, not necessarily how you decorate yourself, they'll make you a beautiful person, but what you do, what kind of adventures you have, what kind of people you invite into your life can really, if you're not feeling great about yourself, can really kind of transform you.
Well, that's true. Um, you know, what this story tries to do is take a small tree that has that I've given a personality to, that has challenges in life. And, I mean, the real bottom line well, not the bottom line, but, part of life is we all have to persevere through the adversity of life. I mean, every one of us. And so this little tree has adversities, and in the end, he meets Emily, who has adversity. And together they come together to where the adversities don't matter so much as to what they're able to give each other. And they don't see each other as having adversity. They see each other as, I can't say she sees him as a person, but, as an entity that is positive, and he sees her as an entity that is positive. And it leads to something, I think, kind of glorious at the end.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Understanding that our kids are going to face adversities and challenges, that seems to be something that parents just don't want to deal with. We hear the term helicopter parents. We talk about a lot of parents out there wanting to bubble wrap their kids and make sure that they don't get any bumps or bruises, and heaven forbid they break a bone, and we don't want them to experience a loss, so we're not going to count and everybody's going to get a trophy. That's not a realistic expectation.
It's not. And you're right. Every parent wants the best for their children. They want life to be a positive experience. They want their children to get the trophy. They want their kids to excel. They want them to have dreams and hopes, desires that go someplace. But, as I said earlier, we all have to persevere through the adversity in life. I mean, I experienced setbacks in my life in sports, that wasn't necessarily my fault, but it happened. In business, it happened. Both my kids have had adversity in doing their sports and in doing things that they were trying to do in life. And all we've been able to do is say to them, hey, don't give up. Don't stop. Keep going. Persevere. That's part of life. And that really, as a parent, is what I think you have to do with your children. And that's really the essence of this book, just to a certain degree, is that Needles never gives up. And he just keeps trying, and he keeps trying, and it comes out into a happy ending. And hopefully, our kids will all ultimately have happy endings to their lives, or at least with the things that they're inspired to do and the things they want to have happen.
Yeah. And it's so important. And I don't know about you, Richard, but I think we learn more through dealing with those adversities and figuring out ways to get back up on our feet.
Well, you do. I mean, I look at sports. I was a swimmer. I had dreams of being an Olympic athlete. I was on my way, and I had some serious physical, getting sick, things like that kept me from being able to do that. Heartbreaking. But I didn't stop. I kept trying. And I realized that was a training ground for later in life once I got into business. And when, things get tough, you have some setbacks, you just keep going. You just put your head down and keep forging ahead. And I've noticed that I've had to help train my kids or teach my kids to be able to say, hey, it's been tough. I didn't get what I wanted, but I'm just going to keep forging ahead. Maybe I take another path, whatever you have to do, but don't give up.
Yeah. So very, very important. I'm looking back at my days as, playing soccer in high school and college, and, there's this one memory I've shared with my kids of, chasing it must have been the fastest human being I ever encountered in my life. He was on an opposing team, and I just remember chasing him all day long. And I think I held him to one goal, and I felt that was a huge victory for me, even though it's just behind him the whole time. But it was just that, being able to get out there and say, I'm just not going to give up. I'm just going to keep going.
It's funny that, you remember things like that from when you were young, and I remember them too. I think everybody does, because those are some of the original experiences of your life that are poignant, that are important to you, but help make you who you are, today.
Was there one thing in particular that inspired you to write this book, or was there somebody in your life that inspired you to create Needles?
Well, no, the inspiration was, yes, the inspiration was that, when I was about 14, a business associate of my dad's delivered a little tree to our house, as just sort of a thank you. Here's a Christmas tree. Problem was, we'd already bought a tree, and it was sitting in the living room, and it was all decorated. So we tried to find somebody to take that little tree, and it was a beautiful little tree. It was really almost perfect in a way, and we couldn't find anybody to take the tree, so that poor little tree sat outside on the side of the house, kind of alone and forsaken for the remainder of the holidays. And I always felt sorry for that tree. I don't know why. I just felt horribly sorry for that tree. And for all these many, many years, I thought, I really want to write a story about that tree and what might have been, as just sort of a little testament to the life of that little tree. And finally one day, I had this in my mind for forever. And finally one day I said, I'm just going to sit down and write a story, because I had kind of been formulating the story over the years, and I just sat down and wrote this story. And that's what it's about. It's about that little tree, and it's just to basically say, hey, if nothing else, the life of this little tree will not have been wasted, because its story will be read by little children who will maybe learn a lesson about life.
Yeah. You were sharing with me before we started recording that not too long ago, you and your family took a cross-continent adventure and celebrated the graduation of your kids from college. As you look back, do you still remember snuggling up with those now adults and reading to them?
Oh yeah. We had a little thing, every single night when they were still extremely young in cribs. I would come in. I would be the last person they would see. My wife would kind of get them all set up, and then I would come in, and I'd take them both, and they were twins. So I would take them both, put them on my lap, and I'd read a book, and then I would sing songs to them, and then I'd put them to bed. And we did that for years. And it was special, very special. And we read a lot of books. I had a lot of books still from when I was a kid.
Mm.
Those little golden books and things
Mm-hmm.
like that, of just basic stories, Cat in the Hat books, things like that. We just read little stories. And a lot of those books had messages.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they had their favorites. They had their favorite books, that like I had to read like 4 nights in a row, and finally I'd say, okay, let's read something else.
Mm-hmm. I've shared here on the podcast, I have a bit of a speech impediment. And especially when I'm tired and there are a number of F's and S's in a row, I kind of fall. And, I think my kids, they conspired, and I think they figured that out, because every time I would come home from a road trip and I'd get in and I'd just driven 300 miles home, and I'd come in and sit down, lie down in the bed with them. The book that they would always choose on those nights was Fox and Socks, and it was filled with F's and S's. And I know as I was sitting there, and they would just giggle. And so, yeah, they were kind of cruel in that way.
Well, my kids actually, they had their own language. We've never been able to figure it out, but it's like they developed their own language, and one would say something, the other would laugh, and then that one would say something and the other would laugh, and we'd be standing there going, what are they saying?
I've heard that before, and you're telling us that's true. That really exists between twins.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. It was really weird. We have no idea what they were saying, but boy, they would just be babbling away and laughing and having a great old time. And this is when they were maybe, 2 and 3, or something. And, then as they kind of got a little older, they sort of grew out of it. It was funny.
I was going to say, my next question, you already answered it, was, did they continue? Did they still, get online and continue to communicate in this weird twin language?
Not so much, but they have their little, they kind of know each other really well. They can kind of, they can read each other. It's really amazing. They can read each other very, very well.
Yeah. Interesting. That's, I have to make a note. That's a subject, idea of twins, we haven't really explored here on the podcast. And I just think that that's fascinating to have that lifelong relationship with another person that is so deep and intimate.
Yeah, it's very special in that way. I've known identical twins that always seemed to know where the other person was without talking to them.
Wow.
Weird. I just believe there's connections there that we don't know anything about, frankly.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I remember when my wife was expecting with my daughter, we didn't want to know what gender our baby was going to be, but I do remember there's one ultrasound visit where the doctor was examining, everything looks great, and wait a minute, what's that? Is there another one? And my wife just freaked. What? What? and there wasn't. But
yeah, we knew early on.
Okay, all right, that's cool. Hey, you were telling me this was inspired by, a tree that you received when you're 13, 14 years old. Your family received it. Did you always dream of being a children's author?
Well, I always thought it might be fun to write a book. I just never was quite sure what I really wanted to do. And I realized I'd had this idea in my mind forever, and I thought this would just be a great first attempt at writing. And so, I decided to try with this. I've been toying with the idea of continuing maybe a series with needles. I've got a couple of ideas on what needles might do next. I'm not quite sure how I've got to figure out how you make a Christmas tree continue on. But hey, it's fiction. Mm-hmm. I also would really like to maybe get involved in writing something, maybe in some way, shape or form, write history for kids. Mm. History has always been probably my most, ardent form of entertainment in terms of reading. And it's something I studied a lot in school. And so it's something I've always just thought might be really kind of, interesting to try to do.
Yeah. History is one of those things we talked about here in the podcast. It's really thrilling. It's really something that's, amazing, but somehow it's been turned boring in schools.
Oh, I agree. I had some really interesting history. I go way back. Some history teachers, especially in middle school and high school. These guys were just so interesting and really inspired me. I really, really enjoyed it. I think there's a way to make history interesting, but also you need to teach what's important about history, and, there's things that I don't think are even getting taught now in schools. And a lot of the things that are being taught, I wonder if they're being, there's an agenda being put in place with it, instead of just teaching about what really happened and why did it happen. Mm-hmm. And sometimes what happened and why it happened can be a lot more interesting than, if it's presented correctly. Mm-hmm. And so, and there's lessons to be learned from history. History repeats itself because of human nature, And so if you can learn from history, then I think that could make for a better world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So what's the reaction of your twins when they discovered that Dad was a kid's author?
They thought it was really cool. Everybody that comes over, they always run in and get a book and give it to them and say, hey, you got to read this. They thought it was pretty neat. We actually had a bake sale at church the other day. I mean, this is really fairly new. I mean, I've only had the books for a month. And so this is really just launching here. And I wanted it to come out early to make it for this Christmas, but because of the whole COVID thing and the supply chain issues and getting things printed, it wasn't able to get out in time. So probably next Christmas is when it'll really hit. It'll be on Amazon in March and Barnes & Noble in March. You can pre-order now, but that's when it'll actually be there. But, people can get the book now through my website, which is needlesthechristmastree.com. But everybody, I took it to church for a bake sale, and I sold a case and a half of books at church in 30 minutes. People were really excited about it. Some people stood there and read the book. They thought it was really neat. So far, it's all been positive.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, you mentioned your website, so we should make sure we mention it again so people can go there, check it out, and be the first to grab their own copy of Needles.
needlesthechristmastree.com.
That's pretty simple.
You can buy the book on there, and yeah.
Yeah. So. Fantastic. Well, we've had a great time speaking to Richard Wagner, the author of Needles, The Forgotten Christmas Tree. And you can find out more about it by going to needlesthechristmastree.com. Hey, Richard, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me. This has been delightful.
Please be sure to join us for the next episode of the Reading with Your Kids podcast. Anthony Kolink will be returning to the show to celebrate book 4 in his Harwood Mystery Series. It's called The Merchant's Curse. That's the next episode of the podcast. If you are the author of a fantastic children's book, please do visit visit Jedley.com. No, we want you to visit readingwithyourkids.com and click on the Authors Click Here button at the top of the page to find out how you can celebrate your book through the Reading with Your Kids podcast. You can be a guest here on the podcast and in a long-form conversation, tell the world all about your book, about your inspiration, about your brand. It's a really fun way to celebrate your book. It gives you a chance to tell thousands of people all about it, and it doesn't cost a thing. You can also learn about our Certified Great Read program and learn about our monthly promotion program. We can celebrate your book through commercials here on the podcast, messages to our 100,000 plus social media followers, and display your book on our nationwide network of digital pedestrian billboards. Check it out today, readingwithyourkids.com. And if you want, you can certainly visit Jedley.com. It's a little outdated, but there are some great pictures there. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, I want to start by thanking our guest, Richard Wagner. Please be sure to check out Needles, The Forgotten Christmas Tree. I also want to thank my team, Fatima Khan, Rory Grady, Mirabella Q, Jordan Saley, Stephanie Davila, Skylar Strauss. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place by reading with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next edition of the Reading with Your Kids podcast.